I can now hear you perfectly. How are you today?
Reading yourself there, Jeremy.
I am fantastic. Fantastic.
I would imagine nothing less. But you're dialing in from Los Angeles, not your hometown of New York?
I'm dialing in from my Los Angeles garage, but I will be going back to upstate New York in a week.
Got it. Your bio online says, born in New York City. Are you actually from Manhattan? Did you grow up there?
No, I was actually. Does it say born in New York City? I gotta go change it. I was actually born in Long Island.
Oh, whereabouts?
I was born in Long Island Jewish Hospital. I was raised in. I was a baby in Bayside, Queens, and then moved to Rockland County, New York, when I was a young child, and then spent 18 years of my life in New City, New York.
Wow. Okay. I used to work in Nyack, which had its weird New City Nyack, like Springfield, Shelbyville on The Simpsons, those kinds of two towns pointing at the finger at each other. But it's always funny to me, before I start asking you about you, how most people don't know what Long Island is. They don't realize it's like 150 towns or whatever. They think it's just a thing. And it's easier to say New York City than Long Island.
Are you from Long Island?
I'm from Long Island. I've lived elsewhere, but I moved back to Long Beach.
God.
Have you ever filmed anything out here? I'm finding more and more producers have been.
You know, there's a tax credit out there, and I've investigated it. I have not. I mean, I really, really want to do a remake of Weekend at Bernie's. I actually thought I thought it would be a great business idea to make a Bernie doll, like to make a lifelike Bernie doll. Just because I thought it would be funny for like 12 people, but then they already existed. I looked it up. You could actually buy a Bernie doll.
I did not know that. That's going to be a future holiday gift over here. And let's just be honest, Weekend at Bernie's 2, not the greatest, but the dance scene that he arises from the voodoo priest and conga lines, that needs to be in a movie.
I have to confess, I was a huge Weekend at Bernie's fan. I probably saw the original Weekend at Bernie's, I would say 50 times in my life. I don't think I ever saw the sequel. And I also will confess that I don't think I ever saw Ghostbusters 2. I was a big comedy guy.
Sure.
But I was an original purist. I was not a big comedy sequel guy. Occasionally there was one that I snuck in on HBO or something when I was growing up. I'm like, all right, I'll watch it, and then it kind of stuck with me. But Caddyshack 2 with Jackie Mason and Jonathan Silverman, that was one of those where it was all right,
That is the prime example. When I interviewed Jackie Mason the first time, I think I complimented him on Caddyshack 2, but I did not mean it, for the record. So putting it back to you here.
Thank you so much. This is one of my best pieces of work. People love Caddyshack 2.
That is a great accent impression of him. And how does he have that accent growing up or being born in Wisconsin? Does anyone know?
He grew up in Wisconsin?
The bios that I read online for my research, granted, these are shoddy research things that lead me to say that you were born in New York City, but I believe he is from Sheboygan or Milwaukee.
I'm from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I was a rabbi there. I would imagine that his father or his family moved. They were going to do some sort, because I know he comes from a long line of rabbis. So I imagine his family, they were pretty insulated and probably had their own little community, and they all spoke like that, and he was raised like that, and then he probably stuck with it. Was probably became his shtick, and that was his thing. Jackie Mason got me. I used to work for Joel Schumacher.
Yes, that was a future question that was coming.
Sorry. So I shouldn't talk about the Joel Schumacher, Jackie Mason connection?
About how your early credits are, most people's early credits before they quote unquote made it are usually not that glamorous, and yours are pretty damn glamorous.
My life before I became a professional writer was much more glamorous than once I became a professional writer. I was traveling on, I was traveling on the Concorde. I flew first class and everything. Um, and then I sold a script. I achieved my dreams. And then it was back to coach. Nobody cared who I was. It was an interesting change. But Joel Schumacher was incredible. I made 4 movies working for Joel, and unfortunately, he passed away this year during COVID. And he was a really incredible friend, and taught me more than I learned in every year of school combined. Any other person in the world who taught me anything, like, he took that and taught me so much more. Not about making movies, just about life.
Sure. And you're a Yale guy. You're an Ivy League guy. Whether or not everyone realizes that says a lot.
I'm a very typical Yale guy. I mean, when you think of Yale guys, I'm the guy you think of. Definitely not.
Well, then again, I mean, Lewis Black went to Yale, and you don't quite think that's that. So there's a lot of people who went to Yale who don't put out that pedigree publicly, but you know that they're hard workers behind the scenes, and you couldn't have gone through Yale without that work ethic, at least.
Maybe the Harvard people put out that they're Harvard people more than the Yale put out that they're Yale people. Well, I don't know. I had a good time. Well, at Yale, you have nobody really is concerned with grades, or at least they weren't when I was there. It was more, I think everyone was just psyched that they got in. So then it just became kind of a 4-year party. And it's I hope my parents aren't listening to this.
Worse could have happened. So with you and your journey, it's really hard to describe you, not just because there's so many successful credits to it, but some of the things, you're a writer, some you're a producer, some you're a director, some you're a writer, director, some you're a producer, director. Was the goal at the
craft services, whatever it takes?
The extra role that you had in what was that movie? I had it on the tip of my tongue. There's one movie where you were like in the. We'll come back to that
one.
Well,
now I'm curious to know which one it is. Was it when I was working with Joel?
No, I had the note right here. You have one. Oh yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2.
Was I in Dumb and Dumber 2?
It says in IMDb, Ken Conference attendee.
I don't remember that at all. I helped in Dumb and Dumber 2. I helped with a rewrite of the script. I helped with a punch up of the script.
There you go.
I don't remember. It's not saying I wasn't, but I don't remember doing that. What I do remember was being in Prague, working for Joel on a movie called Bad Company with Chris Rock and Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
And I was, 5 feet from Joel, eating yogurt, just trying to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And I hear, Jeremy, come here. You need to go to wardrobe, get a haircut. I need you to be a CIA guy. And I was like, and it wasn't a thing that I had ever wanted to do or asked to do. We were shooting a CIA scene in Prague, and all of the local actors who were supposed to be extras for the CIA just looked like malnourished, kind of, post-communism, just like they did not look like CIA guys. So I went in, and then all of the actors who at this point were just my friends started, they named me Thompson, I think. They called me Thompson. And they started pointing at, like, on camera, they were pointing at me like, what's your address? As Shea Wiggum was like, I need it. Thompson, I need the address now. And I'm like, 749. And if you go back and watch Bad Company, at the end of it, you'll see me back there completely scared shitless that it was method, because the world was about to explode and I had to save the world by giving somebody an address.
Totally.
I thought that's what you were referring to, but
well, It sounds like your IMDb is incomplete. Your Wikipedia is wrong. I guess you just can't trust anything when you're trying to do some honest research here.
Note to self: update IMDb and all the research that's online.
Well, are you ready for a compliment?
Sure, I would love one.
Okay.
I need one this morning.
The wife and I loved Big Time Adolescence. We loved Plan B. Two great movies that have so many jokes in them, but then they also have the end of the second act into the third act, friendships in question thing, not spoiling too much, and an exploration of friendship from a smart place. So I like the films that you've been doing as of late. But leading to all that, when I was a kid, I get a hunch, even though you look younger than me, we're around the same age. When I was growing up, no one wanted to make movies for TV. And Hulu, in a distant kind of way, is like a movie for TV. In a way, when did you start to realize that it was actually cool to be making movies exclusively from the streaming services?
Is it cool?
I think it's cool. Well, think of it this way.
Well, right now, this is the moment that I thought it was really cool. I never really thought about it like that. For me, my dream was to make movies that people go to the theater and laugh, and there's not a feeling that I like better in the world. And you can think of any feelings you can think of. It's not a single feeling for me personally that's better than sitting in the back of a theater with 500 people laughing at the jokes that you wrote or the movie that you made. For me, that's the best. And it doesn't quite compare sort of, when the movie is launched, then you kind of read on Twitter where people are like, OMG, this movie funny AF. It doesn't have that, like, that gives you a little bit of it, but it doesn't have that same, just doesn't have that same feeling. So my ultimate goal is to try and figure out how to get people back in the theaters, but I also understand as a father of four and a husband that it's hard to go to the theater. It's really hard, especially during this pandemic. It's much easier to be able to sit on a couch and watch in your comfortable surroundings where you can get up and go to pee and nobody's judging you. And but I really do hope that the theater experience comes back to life. I feel confident that it will in some way. I think some of the movies that have been made over the past 4 or 5 years have contributed to people not going to the movies, and it's a little bit of a cycle of like, why would I want to go to the movies? There's nothing to see. I could just watch this at home.
Yeah.
It's every movie is an Avengers movie or something along those lines, and so the movies haven't really been made for. I don't know. I feel like for quite some time, movies like the ones we're making have not been promoted in a movie theater, and it isn't because people wouldn't go to the movie theater to see it. I think it's just because they don't have an opportunity to go to the movie theater to see it.
True. But something like Plan B, to me, is so high quality that if this were in the theaters 15 to 20 years ago, what do I know? I think that would have been $100 million movie, because how is that any lower in quality than American Pie 1, 2, or 3? It's a similar formula where you have high school students having that kind of an awakening with pop culture references and music of the time and commentary. Whereas growing up, if you heard that a movie was coming straight to TV, you'd go, oh, okay, guess they couldn't sell it.
Yeah, it's I like to think that we're making. I like to think that the quality of the movies that we're making are, we have the goal in mind that we're going to go be in 5,000 theaters across the world. Even if that's not happening, we actually shoot it on the type of technology and the types of cameras that, just in case we somehow have a miracle and the pandemic goes away and somebody decides we're going to put it in 5,000 theaters, we're able to do that. And that's why we push for the quality to be as good as it is.
Fair.
It's a made for I think the made for TV movie that you and I associate with is very different than it is today. I think today everybody watches movies or TV on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or on their phone.
Sure. Then again, my parents watch all these Hallmark movies. No offense to anyone from Hallmark, whoever hears this or sees this, but it's the same exact story arc that's going to be happening in the Hallmark movie. Whereas in one of your movies on Hulu, somebody could die in the first act. There can be explosions. Stuff can actually happen in it. And that didn't happen in the movies growing up. TV, when I was growing up, no one would ever move away. No one would ever break up. Nothing like that could have happened because they have to be there the whole season.
Yeah, that's a good point, for sure.
And also looking at that always correct IMDb page, we see future projects of yours. We see the swimsuit issue. We see Sid is Dead. Some of the things you're the producer. Some of the things you're the director. And I have to imagine that's not even complete because the almighty Deadline.com embargo, where until they announce it, it doesn't happen. So you're keeping pretty busy these days in spite of things slowing down for most people.
Yeah, I guess so. Even with the pandemic, we started this company about 3.5 years ago, and we're about a week away from wrapping our 10th movie and going into prep on our 11th movie. And that was including a pandemic where we shot reshoots of The Ultimate Playlist of Noise. We shot Plan B. We shot our movie that followed Plan B, Sex Appeal, which will come out pretty soon. So our goal is to be shooting between 4 and 5 movies a year, and in order to make that happen, we have to be probably pushing 30 to 50 movies a year in order to fill the slots of the that we have open. And that's what we're looking at for the next couple of years.
That was actually my next question, which is for every one thing that gets made that was more than just an idea on a cocktail napkin, how many ideas were actually pushed through in a way? Do you have an average mathematical number on that?
Push through to me or push through to Hulu or to the studios?
Oh, for you personally.
I mean, I haven't figured it out. I probably should, but I would imagine that every single day of my life, I have an incoming email. I probably have between 6 to 20 incoming emails about new projects. And the more movies we make and the more success we've had with American High, the greater that number is. And I try really, really, really hard to engage with everyone who reaches out to me, which sometimes is it's a blessing and a curse, because the blessing is that a lot of times people are really grateful, and if somebody writes something or somebody does something that's good, that's maybe how we get our next movie, or I helped somebody get a job somewhere. And then I run into them 10 years later and they're like, oh, you helped me get a job. I'm like, really? I don't remember. But the curse is that people don't, a lot of times people don't give me their scripts because they want my opinion on it, or they want the truth.
Sure.
They'll give me their scripts because they just want me to do something with it. They want me to tell them it's great and pass it to my agent or make the movie. And it's not that easy.
Yeah. That's the reality. Most people think that the big break is getting the thing optioned, and the reality is most things that are optioned aren't made. But around what year was your first credit where you felt comfortable, like, hey, this is going to be a career? Do you have an exact year or timeline for that?
Yeah, it was I was working for Joel Schumacher, and I was in Dublin and I was shooting second unit on this movie with Kate Blanchett called Veronica Guerin, and I was writing an idea I had based on something that happened to me in real life. And I was working with Jay Lavender, who I had met. I had met him at CAA. He was an assistant at CAA. We were both assistants together, and we would read each other's scripts. And we wrote that script together. I was in Dublin, he was in LA. We were sending it back and forth, and we gave it to. It was Mike Sharesky and Ramses Ishak, and they read it and they said, if you sign with us, we'll sell this script by Thursday or something along those lines. We said, great. We signed with them and they sold the script by Thursday. I quit my job working for Joel, which wasn't easy, by the way. And that was when I had made more money than I had ever thought of at that point, and became a professional writer. So that was in 2002.
2002. So that goes to the age-old entertainment industry story of they started in the mailroom before they did this, like David Geffen and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people that were assistants ultimately wound up the producer, director, and or screenwriter. I think we can learn that one from you.
Yeah, the mail. I would give everybody, no matter what you want to do, the advice of going and working in the mailroom at an agency. You're in the epicenter of the business. So no matter what you want to do, whether you want to be a producer, an agent, an accountant, a lawyer, whatever it is you want to do, go there, make friends, learn the business for a year, and then you could choose. You learn where you need to be in order to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish. So it's I knew I wanted to be a director, so I went there and I went and worked for a director, and I went to work for one of the highest grossing directors of all time. So that's the secret. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. Well, let's go quick questions, because you've been very generous with your time, and then you're a free man and on to working on those endless projects. And
by the way, this is a great way for me. I could talk all day because it's just procrastinating actually having to go work.
Okay, well, we'll compromise. 2 questions. Okay.
Perfect.
First one is, do you miss in any form living on Long Island?
Well, I never lived on Long Island, so what do I miss living in Rockland County, New York, in New City, New York, Nyack?
Sure.
I really don't. I don't miss living there. I miss the time that I spent there. I miss being 18 years old and being with my friends and my family over there when I was much younger. But I don't really miss living there. I love where I'm living in upstate New York, in Liverpool, New York, and I love where I'm living in Los Angeles. And managed to, even though it's a challenge to get back and forth between the two, I've managed to carve out a really good life in terms of where we're living. So
to editorialize on that, I don't think I've ever encountered anybody who pursued a career in entertainment, left Long Island, and went, no, I miss Long Island. Everyone was just happy to get out of that region, because it wasn't that, and I guess the Nyack region as well, were places where you could never make it in entertainment. How can you? It wasn't the most pro-arts kind of upbringing that you could have, as great as the upbringing can be.
I said, I was speaking at a luncheon or something in upstate New York, and I said 100 years ago, a handful of Jews moved out to Los Angeles to create Hollywood, and now 100 years later, one crazy Jew moved to upstate New York to try and make movies there. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense from a logical point of view, but sometimes logic is not the best path in this business. Sometimes when people zig, we gotta zag, and I've found that marching to the beat of my own drum has always proven to help me in my career and life, and I hope that I can continue to do that forever. And yeah, that would be my
case in point. And the last question is, What exactly was that first movie that made you went, this is what I want to do for a living? Is there clearly distinctly one?
Movie that I saw or movie that I worked on?
That you saw, and I'm guessing it's not Caddyshack 2.
It was Jack Hartoonian, the Jackie Mason character in Caddyshack 2. No, you know what? I grew up probably like you, watching all these movies, loving movies. I loved all kinds of movies. Loved comedies, action, everything except for horror. I was a Predator, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon. Like, I loved movies more than anything. I had no idea it was you could make. I didn't know it was a career. I didn't know you can. I didn't know people made movies. I thought it was just on TV.
Right, it just shows up.
It didn't even cross my mind. I was never thinking, oh, somebody is there with a microphone and cameras, like recording this stuff. Never once thought about that until I saw the movie Swingers.
Yeah.
I was in college, and a friend of mine was like, hey, let's go. This movie's supposed to be good. We went to the art house theater, and I was not a big art house theater type of guy. I don't think I'd ever seen an art house movie that I was awake for the whole thing. And I went to go see Swingers, and I remember there was the ceiling in the theater was dripping. There was a big drip because it was raining. And watched that movie, and immediately it was like, oh, that's just my friends and I with cameras walking around recording what we would do on a normal night. And I remember saying, that was the movie I remember saying, I can do this. Because I was like, oh, if those guys can do this, then I could do this. And had always written for Vince Vaughn ever since then, because I'd been such a huge Vince Vaughn fan and got to work with him on the movie The Breakup and on The Binge on Hulu as well.
And since then, you've made Gretzky's head bleed?
Yeah.
Paltrocast.